Imagine lying back, your mind drifting into the soft quiet of the night, while we take a slow journey, not just across miles, but across millions and millions of years. We are going back, far beyond the times of kings, back before the very first humans, before even the earliest mammals, before flowers bloomed across the earth. We are traveling into the deep past, into an age so ancient that the very ground beneath our feet was still shifting into the shape of the world we know today. This is the time when the first dinosaurs walked the earth. It is the Triassic period, more than 230 million years ago. The continents were not divided as they are now. Instead, there was one enormous landmass called Pangaea. Imagine standing on the edge of this vast supercontinent. No cities, no roads, no voices. Only wide plains, tall ferns, steaming swamps, and volcanic mountains that rumbled in the distance. The air was warm, heavy, and humid. This was the beginning of something extraordinary. The earliest dinosaurs were not yet the towering giants we often picture. They were small, light, and quick creatures built for survival in a harsh and changing world. One of the very first known dinosaurs was Eoraptor, a tiny predator from what is now Argentina. It was no larger than a dog, with sharp teeth and fast legs. Picture it, darting between ferns, chasing small lizards and insects. Unlike the gigantic dinosaurs that would come later, Eoraptor was delicate and lightweight, but it carried within its bones the design that would shape millions of years of evolution. Another early dinosaur was Herrerasaurus, a slightly larger hunter, about 10 to 12 feet long. It roamed the same lands as Eoraptor. Imagine this slender creature with long claws and strong legs, stalking quietly in the shadows of giant trees. Its world was filled with other reptiles too, crocodile-like creatures, early amphibians, and even mammal-like reptiles that had survived from earlier ages. Dinosaurs were not yet the rulers of the earth. They were just beginning, small survivors among many rivals, and yet something about them was different. Their bones were light, with air spaces that made them strong but not heavy. Many of them walked upright, balancing on two legs, rather than sprawling like lizards. This gave them speed, agility, and an advantage in a world where survival meant being faster or smarter than the creature chasing you. Over time, these small details, hollow bones, upright posture, sharper senses would allow dinosaurs to rise above all other animals, becoming the giants we dream of today. The early Triassic world was harsh, but it was also full of new possibilities. Fern forests stretched across valleys. Strange insects buzzed in the heavy air. The skies were vast and mostly empty, except for a few early flying reptiles that glided like shadows against the glowing sunsets. In the distance, volcanoes often erupted, painting the skies red with ash and smoke. Imagine being one of those early dinosaurs, watching the fiery glow in the sky at night, not knowing that this fiery planet was shaping them for greatness. Dinosaurs did not begin as rulers. They began as survivors, small, clever, adaptable. Some ate meat, like Herrerasaurus. Others began exploring plants, slowly shaping the bodies that would one day grow into massive sauropods. Each step, each adaptation was slow and gentle, unfolding over millions of years like a story whispered by the earth itself. If you close your eyes, you can almost picture it. The ground shakes lightly under your feet as a herd of early dinosaurs runs across a fern field. Their footsteps rhythmic, like a heartbeat echoing through time. They are not yet the enormous giants, but they are beginning to dream of that future. In their quick movements, in their light bones, in their sharp eyes, lies the promise of the Jurassic and Cretaceous to come. The first dinosaurs were not monsters. They were delicate threads in the fabric of life, weaving themselves into a world that was still forming. They were dreamers, stepping softly into history, not yet aware that their kind would one day dominate the planet for more than 150 million years. As you listen to their story, let the thought settle over you like a soft blanket. Even the mightiest giants begin small. Even the most legendary rulers begin humbly. And in the deep quiet of the Triassic night, as ferns swayed and stars shone in the endless sky, the first dinosaurs dreamed their way into existence. Imagine a world where the trees stretched higher than any building you've ever seen, their leafy tops swaying in warm prehistoric breezes. Now picture the ground trembling beneath your feet, not from storms or earthquakes, but from the steady, thunderous steps of the largest creatures ever to walk the earth. These were the sauropods, the long-necked giants who seemed almost too big to be real. Yet for millions of years, they were the kings and queens of the forests. Sauropods are perhaps the most iconic of all dinosaurs, the ones children first draw when asked to imagine the ancient world. Long necks, long tails, and massive pillar-like legs that carried them across plains and valleys. They were plant eaters, but their size alone made them seem like mountains that had come alive. One of the earliest known sauropods was Plateosaurus, appearing around 214 million years ago, though not yet as gigantic as its later relatives. It already showed the classic features: a long neck, a heavy body, and the ability to reach high branches that smaller animals could never touch. Think of Plateosaurus as the beginning of a story that would grow more and more dramatic with each chapter, leading to titans like Brachiosaurus and Argentinosaurus. Now let your mind wander to a dinosaur so tall it could have looked through the windows of a 4-story building. Unlike most sauropods, which held their necks out horizontally, Brachiosaurus held its neck upright like a giraffe. It could reach treetops that no other creature could dream of, stripping leaves from the highest branches with a slow, sweeping motion. Imagine standing at the base of such a giant, your entire body no taller than one of its enormous legs. And yet, despite its size, Brachiosaurus was a peaceful animal, content to spend its days quietly feeding. Then there is Diplodocus, with its incredibly long tail, so long that scientists believe it could crack like a whip, perhaps as a defense against predators. Its neck stretched out like a graceful bridge across the land, allowing it to sweep through fields of ferns without moving its massive body too much. If you close your eyes, you might hear the faint swish of its tail as it moves slowly across the prehistoric landscape, a living monument of quiet power. But even these giants were dwarfed by the truly colossal Argentinosaurus, one of the largest land animals ever known. It may have stretched over 100 feet long and weighed as much as 70 tons. To imagine this, think of 10 elephants lined up together, or a blue whale lifted from the sea and placed on the land. Yet Argentinosaurus, like all sauropods, was gentle, a slow-moving creature whose life revolved around feeding, walking, and resting. What made sauropods so successful was their incredible design. Their long necks allowed them to reach food sources far above the ground or spread out across wide areas. Their massive size protected them from most predators. Very few carnivores would dare attack something so immense. Their bones, surprisingly, were light and filled with air spaces, almost like the bones of birds, so that their bodies, though huge, were not impossibly heavy. Every detail of their anatomy was like a quiet masterpiece of nature's engineering. Scientists still debate how such giants lived their daily lives. Did they travel in herds, moving like rolling hills across the land? Fossil evidence suggests that some did, walking together in groups, protecting their young in the middle of the herd. Picture it, dozens of sauropods moving together, the ground rumbling with each step, their shadows stretching long across the plains as the sun set in a prehistoric sky. And yet, for all their grandeur, there is something soothing about sauropods. They were not fierce hunters. They were not filled with sharp teeth and violent instincts. They were calm grazers, spending their days in slow, steady rhythms, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. Watching them, if one could, might feel like watching clouds drift across the sky, massive yet gentle, ever moving but never hurried. If you let yourself drift now, you might imagine being small among them, perhaps like a bird perched on a sauropod's back, safe and calm, carried high above the forest floor. The world below would seem far away, and the quiet creak of trees bending to the giant's reach would be the only sound. The sauropods remind us that not all greatness comes from speed or violence. Sometimes greatness comes from calm persistence, from simply being vast and enduring in a world that changes as you sink deeper into relaxation. Remember this: sauropods walked the earth for over 100 million years. They outlasted countless other species. They grew, thrived, and spread across continents, leaving behind bones so massive that even today, when we stand beside them in museums, we feel small and humbled. These gentle giants are reminders that the world once held beings so incredible, so vast, that they blur the line between myth and reality. And yet, in their quiet power, there is comfort. They were never in a rush. They moved with patience. They lived with ease. Just like them, you too can let the weight of the day drift away and rest in the knowledge that life, like the sauropods, unfolds slowly and beautifully in its own time. Now that we've walked among the gentle giants of the sauropod world, let us shift our gaze to the smaller, quicker, and sharper minds of the dinosaur age. If sauropods were like mountains moving slowly across the land, then raptors were like sparks, fast, clever, and full of energy. When we hear the word raptor, many of us think of the terrifying velociraptors from movies, leaping and shrieking. But in reality, raptors, more formally called dromaeosaurs, were much smaller, more bird-like, and perhaps even more fascinating than the monsters of fiction. They were hunters, yes, but also survivors, explorers, and thinkers in their own ancient world. The most famous of them all is Velociraptor, whose name means swift thief. Yet Velociraptor was not the towering human-sized predator you might picture. In truth, it was only about the size of a turkey, with a slender body, a long tail for balance, and sharp claws on each foot. What made it fearsome was not its size, but its intelligence and speed. Imagine a velociraptor darting through the underbrush, feathers shimmering in the sunlight, eyes sharp and alert. It was quick, clever, and coordinated. Those feathers are important. For years, we imagined raptors as scaly, lizard-like creatures, but fossils have revealed that many of them were feathered, some with plumage that might have been colorful or patterned. They were more like fierce birds of prey than like reptiles. Picture a hawk or an eagle, but with a long tail, long legs, and a curved claw that could strike with deadly precision. In fact, raptors are some of the closest relatives of modern birds, showing us how the line between dinosaur and bird is not a straight cut, but a gentle blending. One of their most fascinating features was the sickle-shaped claw on each foot. Held high when they walked, it was kept sharp like a hidden blade, ready to be used for gripping prey. Scientists believe raptors may have leaped onto their victims, holding them steady with those claws, much like hawks today pin down smaller animals with their talons. It's a chilling image, but also an incredible reminder of how nature repeats itself in different ages, reshaping the same strategies for survival. But raptors were not just about claws and hunting. Evidence suggests they may have been social animals. Fossil sites have been found where multiple raptors died together, hinting that they might have hunted in packs. Imagine a group of them working together, circling and communicating with sharp calls, much like wolves. It adds a new layer to their story. They were not just individuals, but perhaps members of a community. Among the family of raptors was the dinosaur, larger than velociraptor, and one of the inspirations behind movie portrayals. It could grow over 10 feet long, with powerful legs and those same deadly claws. Deinonychus was one of the first dinosaurs that changed how scientists thought about these creatures. Before it, many believed dinosaurs were slow, cold-blooded reptiles. But Deinonychus showed speed, agility, and warm-blooded energy. It revealed that dinosaurs were far more dynamic than we had once imagined. There was also the Microraptor, a tiny relative that had feathers not only on its arms but also on its legs, creating 4 wings. Picture a crow-sized dinosaur gliding from tree to tree, feathers catching the light, moving almost like a ghost in the canopy. Microraptor reminds us that the line between flying birds and earthbound dinosaurs was not sharp but gradual. These were creatures experimenting with flight long before birds truly took to the skies. If you let your mind wander, you might imagine walking softly through a prehistoric forest. Around you, tall conifers rise like towers, their branches whispering in the wind. Suddenly, you sense movement, a flash of feathers, a dart of motion, eyes that shine with sharp intelligence. The raptors are watching. Not monstrous, not gigantic, but alive, quick, and curious. Perhaps they are as interested in you as you are in them. There is something soothing about their story, too. Raptors show us that survival is not only about size or strength. It is about cleverness, speed, and adaptability. While the giants shook the earth with their steps, the raptors danced lightly across its surface, finding ways to thrive in the shadows of giants. And as you let that thought sink in, you might feel a sense of comfort sometimes. The small and clever outlast the big and strong. In their feathers, in their quick movements, in their curious eyes, the raptors carried the spark of the future. For when the age of the dinosaurs ended, their giant cousins faded away, but the small, feathered hunters continued on. They transformed, evolved, and became the birds that fill our skies today. So the next time you hear the song of a bird outside your window, you are hearing the echo of the raptors, the swift thieves, the clever survivors, the ancient hunters who remind us that even in the quietest creatures, the story of dinosaurs still lives on. Close your eyes and picture a wide open plain during the late Cretaceous period. The sun is warm, the air is still, and the ground is soft with ferns and flowers that sway in the breeze. In the distance, you hear the faint rumble of heavy footsteps, not the towering sauropods we met earlier, and not the quick, feathered hunters of the forests, but a different kind of dinosaur, ones built not for speed or size alone, but for defense, for survival, and for the art of protection. These were the armored dinosaurs, the shield bearers, the horned defenders, the creatures who wore nature's armor as if they were living fortresses. They remind us that in the ancient world, survival came in many forms. Some ran, some hunted, some grew enormous, and others, they carried their protection with them, like knights in prehistoric armor. One of the most famous was Ankylosaurus, a dinosaur that looked almost like a tank. Its body was covered in bony plates fused into its skin, forming a shield that predators, like Tyrannosaurus rex, would think twice about attacking. Along its back, rows of armored plates caught the sunlight like scales of a giant dragon. At the end of its tail, Ankylosaurus carried its most powerful weapon, a heavy club of bone that could swing with crushing force. Imagine it slowly moving through a forest clearing, tail swaying gently from side to side. To predators, it was a warning. To its herd, it was a guardian. Another remarkable group were the stegosaurs, with their rows of tall plates rising from their backs like sails. Stegosaurus, one of the most beloved dinosaurs, lived earlier in the Jurassic period. Its plates may have been used to regulate heat or perhaps to warn predators, glowing red or orange with blood when the animal was threatened. Along its tail were sharp spikes, the thagomizer, as paleontologists like to call it, a set of natural spears ready to strike. And yet, Stegosaurus was no killer. It was a gentle plant-eater, spending its days slowly grazing, its strange, majestic shape like a dream, half remembered from another world. And then there were the horned dinosaurs, the ceratopsians, who carried shields not on their backs but on their heads. Picture the mighty Triceratops, with 3 sharp horns and a massive frill protecting its neck. Standing as tall as a truck, with skin rough and tough, Triceratops faced the world not with speed but with courage. Fossils show that many of them bore scars on their frills and horns, perhaps from clashes with predators or even battles among themselves. Still, most of their lives were spent in peace, wandering in herds, grazing on low plants, their horns more a warning than a weapon. Other ceratopsians came in dazzling variety. Styracosaurus, with a crown of long spikes radiating from its frill. Pterosaurs, with thick, bony bosses instead of sharp horns. And Chasmosaurus, with a frill so wide it spread like wings from its skull. Each one was unique, a masterpiece of natural armor. Together, they created a world where beauty and defense were one and the same. When we imagine these creatures, it might seem like they were always fighting, Armor and horns suggest constant battles, endless danger. But if you listen closely, you might hear the softer truth. Most of the time, these dinosaurs lived in quiet. Ankylosaurs swung their tails, not at predators, but simply to balance as they walked. Stegosaurs lifted their plates into the sun to warm themselves during chilly mornings. Triceratops nuzzled their young with those powerful horns, teaching them how to graze, how to live, how to grow strong. If you let yourself drift deeper into this picture, you might see a herd of Triceratops moving slowly across a plain, the young staying close in the center, the adults walking on the edges like guardians. In the distance, an Ankylosaurus ambles by, its tail club moving gently, a silent warning to anything that might think of approaching. And nearby, a Stegosaurus lifts its head toward the setting sun, the light catching the plates along its back, glowing like lanterns in the dusk. There is something soothing about their world. These were not predators chasing endlessly. They were not fragile creatures living in fear. They were strong, steady, protected. Their armor was not just a defense, but a symbol of peace, a way to live without constant rushing, a way to stand firm in a dangerous world. And perhaps there is a lesson here for us, too. We may not carry bony plates or horns, but we each have ways of protecting ourselves. We each build our armor, not always to fight, but to feel safe, to stand strong, and to protect the ones we love. The dinosaurs remind us that defense does not have to be violent. It can be quiet, calm, and steady, like the slow, deliberate steps of an ankylosaurus crossing a prehistoric valley. So, as the night deepens and your mind drifts, imagine the world of armor and horns, vast herds moving gently through ancient landscapes, their bodies shimmering in the fading sunlight, their defenses a promise of safety in a dangerous world, a promise that, even in the age of giants, peace was possible. The world of the dinosaurs was not only filled with gentle giants and armored protectors. Somewhere, moving quietly across the ancient plains, there were also the hunters. They were not many, but they were powerful, and they lived in balance with those around them. To us, they are some of the most famous, the most feared, the ones whose names echo through stories and dreams. And none is more famous than Tyrannosaurus rex. The very name means tyrant, lizard king. Even today, the thought of T-Rex makes hearts race. Sharp teeth, giant jaws, a towering body that could stand taller than a house. But if you listen carefully to the truth of its world, you'll find a story not only of terror, but also of mystery, and even beauty. Imagine standing in a vast Cretaceous landscape about 66 million years ago. The air is heavy with the scent of plants, and the horizon stretches wide and endless. In the distance, the earth trembles. Slowly, a giant form appears. Its massive head swings gently from side to side, its small arms tucked close, its tail balancing its weight with graceful precision. This is Tyrannosaurus rex. Its teeth, sharp and curved, were not just weapons, but tools of survival. Fossils tell us those teeth could grow the size of bananas, thick and strong enough to bite through bone. Yet, despite its power, the T-Rex was not always hunting. Much of its time was spent roaming, searching, and waiting. It may have scavenged as often as it hunted, taking meals where it could, balancing energy with opportunity. It was not a monster. It was a survivor, But T-Rex was not alone in the world of predators. There were others. Earlier, during the Jurassic, there was Allosaurus, a lighter, faster predator, moving in packs, perhaps taking down even the giant sauropods. In South America, there was Giganotosaurus, even larger than T-Rex, with teeth built to slice through flesh like knives. In Africa, there was Spinosaurus, a river hunter with a great sail on its back, perhaps swimming through ancient waterways, hunting fish as large as cars. Each of these predators was fierce, but they were also rare. Nature never filled the world with hunters in great numbers. Most dinosaurs were plantators, and the hunters were few, carefully balanced in the web of life. When they did strike, it was fast, brutal, but brief. Most of the time, they moved quietly, patrolling their lands. Their presence felt more in silence than in sound, and here is something calming to think about. Even the mighty T-Rex, with all its strength, lived only about 30 years at most. It grew quickly, rising to power as a teenager, living its days in the cycle of nature, and eventually passing on like all living things. Fossils of young T-Rex show long, slender legs. They may have been fast, agile, not yet the massive heavy weight of adulthood. By the time they reached full size, they became slower, but their size alone was enough to rule the land. But even the king had moments of peace. Imagine a T-Rex standing still at dusk, its giant shadow stretching across the valley. The air is still. No hunting, no roaring, no chasing, just a massive creature, breathing slowly, watching the sun dip below the horizon. In that moment, the fearsome predator becomes part of the quiet, just another shape in the ancient landscape, living its life in the same rhythm as all others. The predators remind us of something important. They seem terrifying in stories, but in truth, they were not endless killers. They lived as all creatures live, to eat, to rest, to survive. Their lives were not defined by constant violence, but by balance. And in their strength, there was also calmness. They were titans of their age, but they too belonged to the quiet beauty of a world long gone. So, as you drift deeper into sleep, imagine the steady footsteps of a Tyrannosaurus Rex moving through the twilight. Each step is slow, deliberate, heavy, but not frightening. It is simply part of the earth, part of the life that once covered this planet. A reminder that even the mightiest rulers were also just living beings, moving quietly through the flow of time. For many years, people imagined dinosaurs as gray, scaly reptiles. The paintings showed them as heavy, dull-colored beasts, dragging their tails and stomping slowly across swamps. But as science has uncovered more fossils, a softer, more beautiful picture has appeared. A picture filled with colors, textures, and even songs. Imagine, for a moment, a small dinosaur perched on a branch. Its body is covered not in scales, but in fine feathers. Some are simple, downy tufts, like the soft fuzz on a chick. Others are long and patterned, perhaps striped or spotted. The dinosaur tilts its head, and the feathers catch the sunlight, shimmering faintly. You might think you're looking at a bird. In a way, you are. Because dinosaurs and birds are not just cousins. Birds are dinosaurs, the only dinosaurs that survived into our modern world. Every pigeon, every sparrow, every eagle is a living memory of that ancient time. And when you hear birds singing outside your window, You are listening to echoes of voices that may have first begun millions of years ago. Fossils from China have shown us that many small dinosaurs had feathers. Some were simple, others were elaborate, perhaps used to attract mates or show dominance. Imagine bright reds, deep blues, soft yellows, colors that stood out in forests of ancient ferns. While we cannot know every shade for certain, the shapes and structures of the feathers suggest a world far more colorful than we once thought. One of these feathered dinosaurs was a tiny creature with wings, not only on its arms, but also on its legs. With feathers on all four limbs, it may have glided through the trees, drifting gently from branch to branch like a shadow. Another was Anchiornis, no bigger than a pigeon, with delicate feathers and perhaps even the ability to flutter short distances. These were not monsters. They were fragile, light, and beautiful. Even the mighty velociraptor, so often imagined as a scaly, terrifying hunter, likely had feathers. They were not giant beasts, as shown in movies, but smaller, quicker creatures, closer to the size of a large bird. Their feathers might not have been for flight, but for warmth, for display, or simply as part of their natural beauty. And then there is the thought of sound. We may never know exactly how dinosaurs called to each other, but their closest living relatives, birds and crocodiles, give us hints. Some may have sung soft, melodic calls through the trees. Others may have boomed low, rumbling notes across the plains, like distant thunder. Imagine lying half asleep in the shade of ancient plants, hearing not roars but gentle songs, filling the warm air with life. The discovery of feathers also changes how we imagine dinosaurs moving. Instead of slow, lumbering beasts, many were quick, graceful, balanced. Feathers helped them keep warm, allowed them to move lightly, and gave them beauty beyond survival. Perhaps, on quiet mornings, they even preened, fluffing their feathers, shaking off dew, and stretching their wings in the first light of dawn. There is a calmness in this image, not of terror, but of fragility. Dinosaurs were not only rulers of the earth, they were also delicate, colorful, and sometimes vulnerable. They cared for their young, built nests, and perhaps even huddled together for warmth. Picture a small, feathered dinosaur tucking itself beneath the wing of its parent, safe and warm as night falls. That image is far from frightening. It is gentle, almost comforting, when we close our eyes and think of dinosaurs. Perhaps it is better to imagine not only the giants, but also the small, feathered ones. They remind us that the past was not all about power. It was also about beauty, song, and the same soft moments of life that continue around us today. And so, as you rest, think of the feathered dinosaurs, tiny bodies gliding through moonlit forests, colorful feathers glowing faintly in the starlight. Their songs carried softly on the night air. They were survivors, dreamers, singers, and caretakers. And in their memory, the world of dinosaurs becomes not only a place of awe, but also of peace. When we think of dinosaurs, we imagine towering skeletons in museums or fierce creatures in movies. But the truth is, much of what we know about these animals comes not from bones, but from the gentle traces they left behind. A footprint pressed into soft mud, a nest carefully shaped in the earth, a trail of scratches on ancient stone. These small details, frozen in time, tell us stories just as powerful as the bones of giants. Close your eyes and picture the scene millions of years ago. On the shore of a shallow lake, a herd of dinosaurs passes by. Their feet sink into the wet ground, leaving behind deep impressions. Days later, the mud hardens. Over time, it is buried by layers of sand and soil. And millions of years after that, it is uncovered, a footprint, perfectly preserved, waiting to be discovered. These footprints, called trackways, reveal secrets bones alone cannot tell. By studying them, scientists can see how dinosaurs walked, how fast they moved, and even how they lived together. Some trackways show herds traveling side by side, small ones and large ones together, suggesting that young dinosaurs walked with their families. Others reveal predators stalking silently, their steps measured, as if waiting for the right moment to strike. Sometimes the tracks tell almost humorous stories. There are trackways where dinosaurs seem to stumble or change direction suddenly, as if startled. Some fossilized footprints even suggest small dinosaurs chasing each other, their tracks weaving and circling. Perhaps they were young ones, full of energy, running across ancient riverbanks, much like children do today. Nests are another gentle clue. In some places, entire fields of fossilized nests have been found, showing that dinosaurs returned year after year to the same spots, just as birds do. Inside, scientists have found delicate eggs, some with tiny bones curled inside, forever frozen in their earliest moment of life. Imagine the care it took to build those nests, the way parents may have guarded them, warming them with their bodies, watching patiently until the hatchlings stirred. And then there are the delicate impressions, the faint outline of skin, the fragile marks of feathers, the texture of scales pressed into the earth. These are not the mighty skeletons of giants, but soft whispers, gentle shadows left behind by creatures who lived and breathed long ago. They remind us that dinosaurs were real, physical beings that touched the ground, moved through water, brushed against plants, and left behind traces of their passing. The most moving thought is this: many of these footprints were never meant to last. To the dinosaurs, they were nothing at all, just steps taken in their daily life. But time and earth preserved them, turning fleeting moments into eternal memories. A single step, taken without thought, becomes a message across millions of years. So as you drift deeper into rest, imagine the soundless steps of dinosaurs walking across ancient ground. Hear the soft squelch of mud beneath their feet, the quiet ripple of water nearby, the gentle rhythm of life moving forward. Each step, whether small or great, left its mark, not only in the earth, but in the story of time itself. The footprints in stone are more than science. They are reminders that even the smallest actions can last forever, carried forward into futures we cannot imagine. And just as dinosaurs once left their gentle marks on the earth, so too do we, in ways we may never see. When we imagine the age of dinosaurs, it is easy to picture only the land, giant creatures roaming across forests, plains, and swamps. But if you were to lift your eyes to the skies, you would have seen another world entirely. A world filled with wings. A world where shadows drifted across the ground as vast creatures soared above, gliding effortlessly through the air. The rulers of these skies were not dinosaurs themselves. but they're close relatives, the pterosaurs. Their name means winged lizards, though in truth they were delicate, complex beings, unlike anything alive today. Imagine standing on the shore of an ancient sea, more than 100 million years ago. The sun hangs low in the sky, and the air is warm and still. Suddenly, from the cliffs above, a great shape rises. Its wings, stretch wider than a bus is long, catching the wind with ease. This is Quetzalcoatlus, one of the largest flying creatures to ever exist. With wings over 30 feet across, it soared not like a clumsy giant, but with the grace of an eagle, drifting silently on invisible currents of air. Not all pterosaurs were so massive. Some were small, no larger than sparrows, darting through the trees in search of insects. Others had long, slender beaks, perfect for fishing in ancient rivers. Their wings were not made of feathers, but of strong, leathery membranes stretched between elongated fingers. When they flew, it was not the flutter of a bird, but a smooth, gliding dance, like sails on the wind. But alongside them, another story was beginning. The story of birds. The very first known bird, Archaeopteryx, lived about 150 million years ago. Its body was feathered, with wings shaped for gliding, yet it still bore sharp claws on its hands and a long, bony tail. It was halfway between two worlds, not fully bird, not fully dinosaur, but something wondrous in between. From that point onward, birds began to flourish. Small feathered dinosaurs took to the trees, flapping and gliding, testing the air, learning to use their feathers not just for warmth or display, but for flight. With each generation, wings grew stronger, tails shorter, feathers more refined. Slowly, the skies filled with new shapes, new songs, and new life. Picture it. The rivers alive with crocodile-like hunters, and above them all, the skies filled with wings, great pterosaurs gliding on the wind, small birds fluttering through the trees, feathers flashing in the sunlight. It must have been a world alive in every direction, not just beneath your feet, but above your head to dot. And even in their power, there was peace. Flying is not always about speed or hunting. Much of it is about drifting, soaring, resting on the wind. Imagine a pterosaur gliding endlessly over an ocean, wings stretched wide, carried by the breeze, eyes scanning the horizon. No rush, no sound, but the whisper of air. A creature built not just for survival, but for the poetry of flight itself. Today, when we look at birds, we are watching the continuation of that story. Every gull that floats effortlessly above the waves, every hawk circling on warm air, every sparrow fluttering across a yard, they are all reminders of the first creatures that dared to take to the skies. Their ancestors lived alongside the dinosaurs, and their descendants still sing to us each morning. And so, as you rest, picture yourself beneath those ancient skies. The air is warm, the horizon glows with fading light. High above, wings cross silently against the sunset, some vast, some tiny, each one carrying the story of life into the air. Their shadows drift gently over the land, and the world feels wide, endless, and calm. The skies of the dinosaurs remind us that life is not bound to the ground. It rises, it drifts, it soars. It carries with it not only strength, but freedom. And in that freedom, there is peace. Every story, no matter how grand, carries with it an ending. For the dinosaurs, rulers of the earth, For over 160 million years, that ending came suddenly. But before the great change arrived, life continued, quietly and beautifully, across a world that was vibrant and alive. Close your eyes and imagine Earth as it was 66 million years ago. The continents, though not yet in their modern positions, had drifted closer to the shapes we know. Lush forests stretched across much of the land, filled with flowering plants that had only recently appeared in Earth's history. The air was warmer than today, the oceans higher, and the world thrived with endless life on a wide plain. Herds of triceratops grazed peacefully, their horns glinting in the sun. Nearby, towering Edmontosaurus, duck-billed dinosaurs with gentle faces, moved in groups, tearing at leaves and grass. High above, pterosaurs soared on warm currents of air, while small birds darted through the trees, singing the first true songs of their kind. Even the mighty predators roamed this world with rhythm and calm. A Tyrannosaurus rex moved slowly across the landscape, not in a frenzy of violence, but with patient purpose, scanning the horizon, its massive tail swaying with balance. Its presence kept the herds alert, but this balance of hunter and prey had existed for millions of years. It was not chaos, it was life. This was the final age of dinosaurs, the Cretaceous period, and it was filled with richness. Flowers bloomed where once only ferns had grown. Insects hummed in the air, carrying pollen from one plant to another. Rivers wound through thick forests, their banks lined with crocodiles and turtles, while the oceans beyond teemed with creatures as strange as anything on land, giant marine reptiles, ammonites with spiraled shells, and fish longer than a bus, and above all, the skies carried their own quiet rulers. Birds with feathers spread wide, some already resembling the forms we know today, flitted from branch to branch. They were delicate and colorful, their songs soft but constant, weaving music into the air of a world alive with sound. If you could walk through this landscape, you might never guess what was coming. The dinosaurs had no sense of their story nearing an end. To them, life was as it had always been, peaceful mornings, long days of grazing or hunting, nights beneath the stars. The earth was warm, the seas full, the skies vast. Everything seemed endless, but deep in the darkness of space, something unimaginable had begun its journey. A great rock, a massive asteroid drifting silently toward Earth. It had no intention, no awareness, only motion, and yet it would carry with it the power to change everything. Still, for the dinosaurs, those final days were ordinary. A mother guarded her nest, nudging her eggs gently. Young ones played, chasing each other in the dust. Herds gathered to drink from rivers, their reflections rippling in the water. Even the predators rested in the shade, bellies full, eyes half closed. In the heat of the afternoon, life went on, beautiful and unknowing. The sun rose and set, the moon shone on quiet nights, and the stars glittered above. To the creatures of that world, there was no sense of an ending. There was only the present, the steady rhythm of existence, the pulse of a planet alive with breath and motion. And perhaps that is the most calming truth of all, even in their final days. The dinosaurs lived fully. They did not fear the future. They did not worry about what was to come. They simply lived each step, each breath, each moment, as though the world would continue forever. When we think of the last days of the dinosaurs, we often imagine destruction, fire, and loss. But if we pause, if we let ourselves drift into the dream of their world, we see instead a picture of peace, a world filled with sound and color, with strength and gentleness, with beginnings and endings woven quietly together. And so, as you let your own thoughts grow softer, imagine yourself resting in that world. The air is warm, the earth hums with life. In the distance, a herd of gentle giants moves slowly, their silhouettes fading against the horizon. Above, wings drift silently across the sky. Around you, the sounds of insects and birds weave into a lullaby as timeless as the earth itself. The dinosaurs did not know they were in their final chapter. They lived as they always had, in the beauty of now. And in that lesson, there is comfort for us too, that even in endings, life carries on with quiet grace. The world of the dinosaurs may have ended 66 million years ago, but their story never truly faded. The ground beneath our feet still carries their memories, written in stone, whispered through time. Fossils, those ancient remains, are like messages left for us, fragments of a vanished world, waiting to be discovered. Imagine the patience of the earth itself. Layer after layer of soil and rock, rain and river, wind and ocean, slowly covering the bones of creatures who once ruled the land. For millions of years, they rested in silence, undisturbed, while the world above them changed. Continents drifted, mountains rose, forests bloomed, and new creatures appeared. Then, much later, human hands uncovered those bones. Paleontologists brushed away the dust, revealing shapes that looked at once familiar and otherworldly. A tooth as long as your hand, a footprint pressed into stone, a skull with horns and frills, frozen in time. Each fossil was not just a relic, but a doorway, a connection across unimaginable ages. And what did we do when we saw them? We dreamed. From the moment we learned of the dinosaurs, they captured our imaginations. Children saw them as giants of wonder. Artists painted them as fierce dragons or gentle guardians. Scientists studied them with awe, piecing together the truth from bones and shadows. But perhaps the greatest gift dinosaurs left us is not their bones, but their reminder of time's vastness. They tell us that the world was alive long before us, and it will live on long after. They remind us that even the greatest beings can pass, yet still leave echoes so powerful they continue to shape the minds and hearts of those who come after. Think of the comfort in that. Endings are never truly endings. The dinosaurs are gone, but every fossil in a museum, every story told about them, every dream sparked by their image is proof that they live on. Their strength, their beauty, their mystery, it all continues, carried by us. When you see a bird lift into the sky, you are also seeing a whisper of them. Birds are their descendants, their living legacy. In each feather, each song, each gentle flap of wings, the dinosaurs breathe again. They are not lost. They are transformed. And so tonight, as you drift toward sleep, let the thought of them soothe you. Picture a quiet museum hall at night. Fossils rest in stillness, their shadows long under soft lights. The bones seem silent, but if you listen closely, you can almost hear them, whispers of the past. A deep, and ancient lullaby. The dinosaurs ruled the earth for more time than we can truly grasp. And even now, they rule in another way, in our wonder, in our curiosity, in our dreams. They remind us of the beauty of life, the certainty of change, and the eternity of memory. Close your eyes now and imagine walking among them one last time. A gentle giant grazes nearby, its massive form swaying like a tree in the breeze. In the distance, wings spread across the golden sky. The earth is warm beneath your feet. You breathe deeply, and with each breath, you carry a piece of their world with you. The dinosaurs are not gone. They live in the stones, in the skies, and most of all, in us. Their story will never fade, because as long as we dream, they remain.